Christine Gale had always imagined her world narrowing slowly, one step lost here, another there, until someday she could not take any at all. But the decline had accelerated in the past month, turning days into a race she had no hope of winning unless she completed the cure she had worked on for years. Every jar on her work table, every annotated herb list, every sleepless night gathering ingredients in the surrounding forests, all of it had come down to a single missing component: frostberries. She traced the shape of them in her notebook for perhaps the 100th time, the little orbs of deep blue frost that shimmered like stars trapped inside ice. They grew only in the forest of eternal winter, only where no sane human ventured, only under the protection of the Winter Prince. She closed the notebook with a firm snap. If she waited any longer, she would be bedridden before the first thaw. And if she went now, she had a chance. A terrifying, foolish chance. Christine packed her satchel with steady hands, though her legs trembled. Her older sister, Marin, watched her with a healer's worry etched between her brows. "You're certain you won't wait for another moon?" Marin asked. She tried to sound reasonable, but her voice carried the edges of fear. "The Winter Prince doesn't tolerate trespassers." "He won't even know I'm there," Christine murmured, cinching the strap of her satchel. "I'll be in and out before dawn." Marin folded her arms. "You can barely walk a full hour without losing feeling. What happens when the cold worsens that? What happens if you fall?" Christine forced a small smile. "Then I'll stand back up." Her body did not make that promise lightly, but she needed Marin to believe it. She needed to believe it herself. Marin hesitated, looked as if she might forbid it, then instead stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Christine. "Come," she whispered fiercely. "Potion or no potion, just come back." "I will." When Christine stepped into the pre-dawn air, the chill immediately stole her breath. But she pressed forward, leaning on her carved walking staff as she made her way toward the distant tree line where winter never ended. The forest of eternal winter rose like a silver wall on the horizon. The closer she drew, the colder the wind became, until it sliced through her wool cloak as though she wore nothing at all. The trees were ancient, white-barked, their branches frosted with perpetual snow. The ground glowed faintly with ice runes, warding marks she had studied for years, yet still did not fully understand. She crossed the border with a quiet exhale, half expecting the Winter Prince to appear immediately and cast her out in a storm of frost. Nothing stirred. Good, she thought, just keep it that way. Hours passed, though each step grew heavier and each breath more painful. The forest was silent. Too silent. No rustle of wildlife, only the faint whisper of falling snow. She followed the map she had memorized, using landmarks of ice formations and star-shaped flowers frozen mid-bloom. By the time she found the frostberry grove, her legs were nearly numb. But there they were, growing beneath a curl of crystalline branches, glowing with pale blue light. She knelt carefully, biting back a wince, and reached for the berries. A cold voice cut through the air. "Human." Christine froze. Her hand hovered inches above the berries. The voice came again, low and resonant as winter thunder. "You trespass boldly." She turned slowly, heart plunging into her stomach. The Winter Prince stood among the drifting snowflakes as if he had always been part of them. Tall, sharp-lined, with pale hair that moved like frost in windless air. His eyes glowed a deep silver blue, colder than the forest itself. His expression was unreadable, but the air tightened around him with restrained power. Christine tried to stand, but her legs wobbled beneath her. She gripped her staff hard enough for her knuckles to ache. I didn't come to steal," she said, though frostberries in her hand would look like theft to anyone. "I only need a few, for a cure." "A cure." His gaze drifted to her trembling legs, to the way she leaned heavily on the staff. "You risk my wrath for fruit." "They're the last ingredient," she whispered. "Without them, I won't last long." His face did not soften. "You think your life outweighs trespass." Christine's breath hitched. She had known he was harsh, but hearing the sentence so calmly stated made panic claw up her throat. She felt her magic stir, weak, frayed, reactive to her fear. Not now, not here. "I'm sorry," she said, voice shaking. "Please, I don't want trouble. I just want to live." The Winter Prince stepped closer. Snow swirled around his boots. Christine's pulse roared. Her magic snapped. A burst of wild energy erupted from her palms, unstable, panicked, tangled with her failing physical strength. It collided with his winter aura in a blinding flash of blue-white light. The ground trembled. A freezing shockwave blasted outward, racing through the trees in every direction. Christine cried out as the magic lashed back into her. The world went white. Her knees hit the ground. When the light dimmed, everything around them had changed. Not a sound remained. The forest, already frozen, was now utterly still. No falling snow, no drifting frost, nothing. Even the wind had died. The Winter Prince stared at his hands in stunned disbelief. Frost spiraled across his skin, binding itself with thin threads of warm, shimmering magic. Her magic. He raised his eyes to Christine, and the temperature dropped sharply enough to make her gasp. "What have you done?" he whispered, furious and horrified all at once. Christine swallowed, throat tight. I don't know. I didn't mean." "We are bound." He stepped closer, the frost threads pulsing between them. "Your curse ties your magic to mine. And this surge, this stillness, it is not natural winter. It is death creeping across my realm." Christine's vision blurred, but she forced herself to meet his eyes. "I can fix it," she said, though she wasn't sure if she believed it. "Let me try." He studied her for a long, icy moment. Then he extended his hand, a command, not a gesture of comfort. "Rise, Christine Gale," he said. "You will undo what you have done, and you will do it with me. Until this curse is broken, our magic and our fates are one." Christine took his hand, the bond between them humming like distant thunder. And somewhere deep in the forest of eternal winter, the silence grew heavier still. Christine woke with a start, snowflakes clinging to her lashes. She lay against a tree trunk, her breath fogging in the unnaturally still air. The Winter Prince knelt a short distance away, studying the frost threads binding their magic with a narrowed, analytical gaze. They pulsed faintly between them, silver blue from him, soft gold from her, twining like mismatched strands forced together. He looked up when she stirred. "You fainted." She bristled despite the dull ache running through her limbs. "My magic surged. That drains me." "Then control it better," he replied, not unkindly but without sympathy. She pushed herself upright with her staff. "If I could control it, we wouldn't be in this situation." He held her gaze for a long moment, something unreadable flickering through his expression, before he turned away. "We must determine the extent of the freeze." The two of them stepped through the silent forest. Snow covered everything in a thick, unmoving layer. Even the runes carved into the earth glowed dimly, as though suppressed. Christine tried to reach out with her magic to sense the network of winter energy she knew had to exist. But her magic snagged on Aeroth's, reacting sluggishly, as though expecting him to guide it. Her frustration slipped out in a sigh. Aeroth stopped. "The bond troubles you. It makes everything feel half mine, half not." She hesitated. Like trying to walk with someone else moving your legs. He studied her intently. Then we must learn to walk together. The words struck deeper than he perhaps realized, but she nodded. Farther in, they found the first sign of the freeze's damage. Thalara, the wind spirit, trapped mid-twirl above a frozen pond. Her translucent form shimmered faintly, wings of pale mist caught in the stillness. Aerith approached her with visible tension. "This freeze is siphoning the life force from my realm." Christine stepped closer. "Can we free her?" "Not yet." His voice was tight. "We must undo this from the foundation." He led her onward until they reached a towering obelisk of ice etched with ancient runes. "A winter anchor," Christine murmured, awe mixing with dread. "There are 3, Aeroth confirmed. They tie the seasons together under my authority. When your curse collided with my magic, it disrupted the anchors. To repair them, we must cast in harmony." Christine leaned on her staff. "Harmony," she echoed dryly. "You and I barely managed not to snap at each other." Aeroth's lips thinned. "Then you must learn not to snap." Her eyes flashed. "I'm not the one freezing the air every time you get irritated." He opened his mouth, likely to argue, but caught himself. Instead, he inhaled slowly as if forcing calm. "We must try," he said. "Begin with your magic. Reach toward the anchor." She closed her eyes and drew in a breath. Her magic flickered like a candle in a storm, uncertain, weakened by the surge. But when she tried to send a ribbon of energy toward the anchor, the bond tugged, redirecting her focus toward Aeroth. "I can't," she said through clenched teeth. "It keeps pulling." His expression softened, a subtle change but noticeable. He stepped closer, his presence cooling the air around them. "Let me guide it," he said. "Give me your hand." Her pulse jumped, not from romance, at least she told herself not, but from the knowledge that physical contact would intensify the bond. Still, she placed her hand in his. The moment their palms touched, magic thrummed between them. Christine's breath hitched as the connection sharpened, and Aeroth's winter magic aligned with hers like a calm current taking hold of a turbulent stream. "Good," he murmured. "Now, again." This time, their combined magic flowed smoothly toward the anchor. The runes lit with blue and gold, the ice pulsing once like a heartbeat. Christine gasped, swaying. Aeroth tightened his grip, steadying her. "You did well," he said softly. She blinked at him, unused to gentleness from such a cold figure. They rested briefly before beginning the long journey toward the second anchor. Christine's legs trembled more with each step, the cold worsening her condition, but she refused to lean too heavily on her staff or on Aeroth. He noticed anyway. After she stumbled for the 3rd time, he stepped in front of her. "Enough. You're pushing too hard." "I don't have a choice," she said breathlessly. "If we don't fix this, you cannot fix anything if you collapse." She bristled again. "I won't collapse." "You already did once." Her glare could have melted snow, if she had fire magic, which she most certainly did not. "Are you always this insufferably logical? When someone in my care endangers herself, yes." She froze. "You're... what?" His expression closed off instantly, as if he regretted the slip. "Focus. We must reach the second anchor before nightfall." Her heart beat oddly as she followed him. They traveled in uneasy silence until the forest opened into a vast clearing. A frozen waterfall loomed above them, its cascades held mid-fall like sculpted glass. At its base lay the second winter anchor, dim and cracked from magical backlash. "We repair it like the first," Aeroth said, "but the strain will be greater." Christine swallowed hard. "Then let's get it over with." Once again they clasped hands. The bond surged, stronger this time, more demanding. Christine felt Aeroth's magic swirling through her, not painful but overwhelming in its clarity and cold beauty. She sensed his tension, his worry for the forest, his tightly reined emotions. And he sensed her fear, of her failing body, of being useless, of slowing them down. She tried to hide it, but the bond made that impossible. Aeroth looked at her, his expression softened by something she could not quite decipher. "You are not a burden." She went still. "I didn't." "You thought it," he said simply. "The bond carries more than magic." Her face warmed. She could only hope he couldn't feel that too. "Focus," she muttered. This time their casting crackled with intensity. The anchor glowed painfully bright. Christine felt her legs give way, but Aeroth caught her before she fell, keeping their hands joined, pouring steady strength into the bond. At last the anchor pulsed with restored stability. Christine sagged against him, dizzy. "We did it." He supported her carefully. "Yes, but the final anchor will not yield so easily." She nodded, her breath trembling. "I'll be stronger by then. Or," he said quietly, "you could simply allow me to carry you when needed." Her cheeks warmed again. "Absolutely not." He huffed, a sound dangerously close to amusement. "Then do not stumble." She would have argued, but her exhaustion stole the words. Aeroth guided her back to the shelter of a frost-covered cave, building a barrier of warm light around the entrance to block the worst of the cold. As she settled against her cloak, fatigue sweeping over her, she felt the bond gently vibrating between them, no longer harsh, but steady and strangely comforting. Aeroth sat a few paces away, silent, his gaze fixed on the frozen forest, as if trying to will it back to life. Christine watched him through half-lidded eyes, her voice barely a whisper. "We're getting better at this, working together." He did not look at her, but his answer came soft and sure. "We must. Our realm, your life, depends on it." Christine drifted into sleep, unaware that Aeroth turned toward her only once she could no longer see, his expression shadowed with something that looked very much like concern, and something else he had long forgotten how to name. Christine woke to the muted glow of pale morning light filtering through the frost barrier. For a moment she expected to feel the familiar heaviness in her limbs, a weight she had carried for so long it had become part of her. But today the cold had steeped too deeply into her joints, and her body protested every movement. She gritted her teeth and slowly sat up. Aeroth stood outside the cave, his silhouette framed by motionless snowfields. He seemed carved from winter itself, still and sharp, a quiet sentinel against the silence swallowing the forest. He sensed her awakening and turned, his gaze cool but attentive. "You slept longer than usual," he said, as she joined him, leaning heavily on her staff. "It was needed," she murmured, though she hated admitting it. "What is our plan for today?" "The final anchor lies deeper in the heart of my realm," Aeroth said. "Its disruption is the source of the worst stillness. If we repair it, the forest's lifeblood may flow again." Christine nodded. "Then we should go." He studied her face, and she knew he saw through her too easy answer. "Your strength is wavering." "So is yours," she said. "You're hiding it better." His eyes flickered with surprise, then softened in acknowledgement. "The freeze acts against me. It pulls on my power. But I will endure. Then so will I." She set her jaw. "Let's keep moving." He did not argue, but his pace remained slower than the day before, as though quietly adjusting to her limits. Snow crunched beneath their boots, each step echoing far too loudly in a world robbed of its sounds. Christine felt her breathing grow labored faster than usual. She tried to hide it. Aeroth noticed anyway. "You need rest," he said. "I need frostberries in my potion," she replied, "and I need to fix the mess I caused." "It was not solely your fault," he said. She blinked. "What?" "My magic met yours with too much force. I should have tempered it." His voice dropped. "I have grown too wary of humans." She snorted softly. "I can't imagine why." Aeroth did not smile, but the corner of his mouth twitched. "An old wound, long past, not worth speaking of." "That means it's definitely worth speaking of." He shook his head. "Later." They pressed on until the forest grew denser, the trees bending under unnatural layers of ice. The air felt thick, as if the freeze had a pulse. Christine's magic hummed nervously along the bond. Something was wrong. They reached the third anchor, or what should have been it. The obelisk lay fractured, split nearly in two, leaking thin streams of pale light that crackled weakly in the air like dying lightning. Christine's breath hitched. This is so much worse than the others. Aeroth approached the shattered anchor with tension lining every part of him. The ritual will require significantly more strength. Christine swallowed hard. Then we'll use more. He turned to her. Christine, the magic will carve through the bond. It will drag on your condition. You are not stable enough to attempt this. She stiffened. We don't have a choice. Aeroth exhaled sharply. You do not understand. Your body cannot withstand the strain. And if you fall during the ritual, the feedback might destroy the anchor entirely. Then tell me what we're supposed to do, she snapped. Let the forest die? Let your people stay frozen? Let me stay cursed forever? His jaw flexed. Do not twist my words. Then stop pretending I'm made of glass. I am not pretending, he said, voice low. Christine's throat tightened. I'm dying, Aeroth, slowly, and now faster. I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to help. Please don't tell me I can't. For the first time since meeting him, Aeroth looked away, not in anger, but in conflict. He stepped close enough that the cold from his aura layered over her skin. Your life matters, he said quietly. To your sister, to this world, and his voice dropped even lower. Perhaps more than I expected, to me. Christine's breath caught. Before she could speak, the anchor crackled violently, sending a ripple through the air. Both gasped as the bond yanked tight, reacting to the disturbance. Their hands flew to their chests, where the magic pulsed in warning. We must withdraw, Aeroth said through clenched teeth. We need assistance. From who? There is a scholar in your border village, Ithran Corvell. He knows ancient magic theory. If anyone has insight into a fractured anchor, it is him. Christine opened her mouth to argue, then stumbled as her right leg gave out entirely. Aeroth darted forward and caught her, steadying her with both hands. The bond flared painfully. Her vision blurred. Not now. He lifted her before she could protest, cradling her carefully in his arms. His face was set, resolute. We are retreating. She wanted to argue, but her strength drained too fast. The world dimmed as he carried her through the silent woods, magic brushing against hers like steady winter wind, anchoring her, keeping her conscious. They reached the forest's edge hours later. Christine's head rested heavily against Aeroth's shoulder. He lowered her onto a blanket near a frozen stream, and placed a hand on her forehead. You must stay awake, he said. Do you hear me? Her eyes fluttered. I didn't mean to make things worse. It was not you, he said sharply, as if the idea pained him. Do not take this upon yourself. Footsteps crunched nearby. Ithran Corvell, nervous, bookish, bundled in too many layers, emerged from behind a fallen tree, breathless and wide-eyed at the sight of Aeroth kneeling beside her. By all stars, Christine! What happened? Aeroth answered. The final anchor is beyond unstable, and Christine's condition is worsening with every surge of shared magic. His voice lowered. We need your knowledge. Ithran swallowed, pushing up his spectacles. I'll help however I can. Christine blinked up at Aeroth, her voice barely a whisper. You came for help? You said you'd never trust. His expression softened with something almost pained. Your life is worth far more than my pride. Her chest tightened, not from illness this time, but from something warm that threaded through their bond like the faintest spark. As Ithran began examining the fractured resonance from the bond, Aeroth stayed at Christine's side, his hand hovering inches from hers, close enough for her to feel his presence, but not touching, almost as if he feared his cold might break her. For the first time, Christine wasn't sure if the bond was what connected them, or if something else had quietly begun to take root beneath the snow.
Ithrin's temporary shelter was a hastily erected canvas awning reinforced with wards and nervous determination. Snow had begun drifting again, just a few flakes, suspended at odd intervals as though even gravity was hesitant in the frozen realm. Christine lay wrapped in blankets near the small campfire, her breathing shallow but steady. Aeroth kept watch beside her. The Winter Prince, who had once stood untouchable and unyielding, now sat with tension in every line of his posture, hands clasped, gaze fixed on her pale face, as though daring the world to challenge her survival. Ithrin sorted through scrolls and rune tablets, muttering anxiously, "The magical interference from that fractured anchor, it's unlike anything I've seen. The bond between you two is amplifying strain in both directions." Aeroth did not look away from Christine. "Tell me what we must do." Ithrin hesitated. "The ritual to repair a broken anchor requires perfect magical equilibrium, but Christine's magic is destabilizing under the pressure. To proceed without correcting that first would be deadly." Christine whispered weakly. Both men jolted, surprised to hear her voice. Aeroth leaned closer. "You should not force yourself to speak." She gave him a faint, crooked smile. "Seems I shouldn't do a lot of things. Yet here we are." Ithrin cleared his throat, flustered. "Right, yes, so. The only reasonable sequence is this. Christine must stabilize her magic before attempting the final ritual."
And given the nature of her condition, the cure potion she created is her only route to that stability. Aerith's brow tightened. She cannot complete the potion until the frostberries are fully prepared, and that process takes days. Ithrin winced. Under normal circumstances, yes, but the bond's resonance has accelerated some aspects, for better or worse. I believe she could finish the potion sooner, if she has help casting the supportive enchantments. Christine's fingers curled weakly around her blanket. "I can brew it." Aerith immediately shook his head. "You can barely sit upright." She lifted her chin, refusing to let frailty swallow her. "This is my cure, my life's work. I have to finish it." Aerith's jaw clenched, and the snow around them trembled with his restrained emotion. "Your life is not something to gamble." "It always has been," she whispered. Silence stretched. In that silence, the truth hung between them. Her determination, his fear, their shared responsibility for a realm beginning to die. At last, Aerith spoke, voice low but steady. "Then I will help." Ithrin wasted no time gathering ingredients, guiding Aerith and Christine through delicate steps. Christine forced herself into a sitting position, her breath shaking, but her hands astonishingly sure as she lit the rune stove and measured crushed petals and powdered resin. Her magic flickered, threatening collapse. Aerith's hand closed around hers. The bond flared, steady, grounded. Christine met his gaze. He didn't speak, but his unspoken promise was unmistakable. "I will not let you fall." Halfway through the process, the effort became too much. Her vision doubled, and she nearly tipped sideways. Aerith caught her, one arm around her shoulders, his winter aura cooling the feverish heat beneath her skin. "Rest," he said. "I can't," she murmured. "The mixture will spoil." "Then let me guide your hands." Normally, she would have protested the idea of being guided like a fragile thing, but exhaustion held her still. Aerith positioned his hand lightly over hers, and together they poured, stirred, and whispered the soft incantations. Their magic spiraled up from the cauldron, weaving gold and blue in a fragile dance. Behind them, Ithrin watched with wide eyes. "I've never seen magic behave like that. It's responding to emotion, yours specifically." Christine flushed. Aerith said nothing, but the faint shift in his breathing betrayed a flicker of tension. When the potion finished brewing, Christine stared at the shimmering result. The cure she had worked toward her entire life sat before her, glowing softly in the enchanted vial. Her throat tightened. This is it. Aerith knelt beside her, expression unreadable but deeply intent. "You must drink it before we attempt the final ritual." Christine lifted the vial with trembling hands. She hesitated only once. "What if it doesn't work?" she whispered. Aeroth's voice softened. more than she had ever heard it. Then we face that together. Her breath caught, not from fear this time, but from the gentle certainty in his words. She drank the potion. Warmth surged through her veins, rushing into every weakened limb, every frayed thread of magic. She gasped as her body flooded with strength so foreign she almost didn't trust it. Golden light wrapped around her like a second heartbeat. The bond glowed brighter, steady, balanced. She stood without her staff. Aeroth rose with her, awe flickering in his expression. "Christine," she smiled shakily. "I'm all right. Better than all right." But the forest trembled. The fractured anchor was failing faster now, sensing the shift in magic. Ithrin pointed urgently. "You must go now. If the anchor collapses completely, the entire forest cycle may break beyond repair." Aeroth extended his hand without hesitation. Christine took it. Their bond surged, not painful, but powerful enough to flutter the edges of their cloaks. The journey back to the anchor took only half as long as before. Christine felt strength returning to her stride, though the weight of the moment pressed heavier with every step. The forest grew darker, the ice thicker, the silence sharper. When they reached the shattered obelisk, cracks glowed like veins of dying light. Aeroth lifted Christine's hand with his, intertwining their fingers. "We cast together," he said. She nodded. "We always do." The ritual began. A storm of magic erupted around them, blue frost spiraling from Aeroth, gold warmth radiating from Christine. The bond snapped tight, channeling their combined power into the anchor. It fought them, shuddering violently. Christine steadied her breath. "Hold with me." "I am," Aeroth said, voice strained. "But it is not enough." The backlash struck. A shock wave of ice slammed into them, knocking Christine to her knees. She cried out as the bond twisted painfully. Aeroth dropped beside her, grabbing her shoulders. "Christine, stay with me." "I'm trying." Her magic fizzled, sparks fizzling uselessly. "There's too much." His hands framed her face, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Look at me." She forced her eyes to meet his. "You are not alone," he said fiercely. "Not anymore. Use my strength. Take what you need." Christine's breath hitched. "Aeroth, if I do—" "I choose this," he said. "I choose you." The world narrowed to the space between them, a breath, a heartbeat, a connection stronger than fear. Christine reached through the bond, drawing deeply from his winter magic. It fluttered her, cold and bright, amplifying her own power until the spell roared like a living force. Together, they drove it into the heart of the anchor. Light exploded. The obelisk sealed with a resounding crack, its runes flaring brilliant and whole. The frieze shattered across the forest in a sweeping wave, restoring motion, breath, life. Christine collapsed forward, bracing on her palms, gasping. Aeroth slumped beside her, drained near to unconsciousness. "Aeroth," she reached for him. His eyes fluttered open just enough to find hers. "You did it." "We did it," she whispered. His hand lifted weakly, brushing her cheek in a gesture so gentle it hurt. Then his strength gave out, and he fell into her arms as the forest around them stirred, thawing at last. The thaw spread slowly at first, drips of melting frost, the soft rustle of branches waking from their forced slumber. Then, like a held breath released, the forest of eternal winter stirred fully, breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat. Color seeped back into the ice-crusted flowers. Wind spirits twirled free from stasis, laughter echoing faintly among the trees. Christine knelt beside Aeroth as warmth crept across the clearing. His skin, usually pale as new snow, had gone almost translucent with exhaustion. Golden flecks of her magic clung to him like dusted sunlight. "Aeroth," she whispered, brushing a stray lock of frost-silver hair from his forehead. "Stay with me." His breathing was shallow but steady.
The bond between them pulsed faintly, no longer strained, simply present, calm, content. Footsteps hurried toward them. Ithwin skidded into the clearing, out of breath and wide-eyed. "Christine! Aeroth! Oh, thank the stars! Are you both?" Christine shook her head, still holding Aeroth upright. "He's drained. He gave too much." Ithrin approached carefully, hands hovering over Aeroth's arm as he assessed the magical aftermath. "He'll live. He just needs time to replenish his power. The forest is already feeding magic back into him. It's remarkable." Christine exhaled a shaky breath of relief. "Good. That's good." They erected a small camp just beyond the newly restored anchor. Christine refused to rest until Aeroth was settled beneath thick blankets with a warming rune glowing beside him. Only then did she sink onto a nearby fallen log, fatigue settling into her bones. Not the painful, grinding weakness she had lived with for years, but normal, human exhaustion. A kind she hadn't felt since childhood. She flexed her fingers slowly. They responded with strength, not trembling. Her legs felt grounded, steady beneath her. The cure was real. Her body knew it. Ithrin sat beside her, offering a flask of warm spice tea. "You did it, you know." Christine accepted it gratefully. "We did. But you're the only one who could have completed the cure. And the ritual." He gave her a small smile, awkward but sincere.
"Christine, you've changed the fate of this forest." Christine looked at Aeroth, lying peacefully in the glow of the runes. "No," she said softly. "We changed it together." Aeroth woke at dusk. The soft blue of twilight fell across the clearing like a calm tide. Christine, sitting cross-legged beside him, was humming quietly as she checked a warming spell. His eyes opened just enough to catch the sound. "You are still here," he murmured. Her head snapped up. "Aeroth!" Relief flooded her features. "How do you feel?" "Cold," he said, voice hoarse. "But that is normal." Christine exhaled a half-laugh, half-sigh. "You scared me." He studied her face, the new vitality in her cheeks, the strength in her posture. "And you worried me," he admitted, softer than the frost-melt breeze. "I feared you would be lost to the magic. But I wasn't." She reached for his hand without thinking, and froze halfway, uncertain. Aeroth lifted his own hand to meet hers, fingers curling around hers with quiet certainty. "No," he said, "you were not." The bond between them vibrated gently, no longer binding or demanding, simply echoing the truth of their connection. Christine swallowed. "The bond feels different, because it is." Aeroth sat up slowly, leaning back against the tree behind him. "The curse has dissolved. We are no longer magically bound." Christine's breath caught. The freedom should have felt like relief. Instead, it left an unexpected ache. "So, we're separate now." Aeroth studied her carefully. "Separate in magic," he said, "but not necessarily in all things." Her cheeks warmed. She looked away, flustered. "I didn't know how much I'd feel when it ended." "I did not expect it either," he admitted. "Perhaps that is why it feels unfinished." Christine's heart stumbled. "What do you mean?" Aeroth's gaze held hers, steady, intense, but no longer shielded by frost. "I have lived centuries in solitude, Christine Gale, and none of that silence, Christine, and none of that silence felt as heavy as the thought of you walking away from my realm without looking back." Her breath trembled. "Aeroth!" He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek with a tenderness she had never imagined from him. "You have your life ahead of you now, healed and whole. You owe me nothing. You owe no one anything." His fingers lingered, tracing a whisper of warmth across her skin. "But if you wished to remain in my world, in any capacity, I would welcome it." Christine blinked hard, overwhelmed. "I don't know what comes next. I just know I want to figure it out without losing what we've—" She searched for the right word. What we've become. Aeroth nodded once, quiet, resolute. Then we will walk forward slowly. On your terms. On ours. She smiled, small and luminous. Yes, slowly. They returned to the border village together once Aeroth regained enough strength to travel. The villagers, who had feared the unending freeze, greeted them with awe and relief. Maren ran to Christine the moment she saw her, enveloping her in a tearful embrace. "You're standing," Maren whispered, voice breaking. "Christine, you're standing without pain." Christine hugged her tighter. "I'm better, truly better." Aeroth respectfully kept his distance from the emotional reunion, though Christine noticed his expression soften as he watched sisters cling to each other. Later that evening, as lanterns lit the village paths, Christine found Aeroth near the outskirts, watching the restored winter sky. "You're leaving soon," she said quietly. "The forest needs its prince," he replied. "Its rhythms must be rebalanced. Its people awakened. But I will return." Christine's heart eased at that. Good. Aeroth turned to her. His breath curled in the cold air. "Christine, if you stay near the forest, I would visit often, if that is something you desire." She stepped closer, her voice gentle. "It is." He bowed his head slightly, a gesture of reverence rather than formality. "Then we begin anew, without magic forcing our steps, only choice." Christine reached out and slipped her hand into his, warm meeting cold, instinctively, willingly. "Then I choose to see what becomes of us," she said softly, "and I hope you choose the same." Aeroth's fingers tightened around hers, steady and sure. "I do." Above them, snow began to fall, not frozen, not still, but alive with motion once more. A new beginning rather than an end. Together, they stood beneath the gentle snowfall, two lives once bound by accident, now connected by intention, by trust, by quiet hope. Not magic, not curses, simply each other.